In mid-May 2025, 9 of us met up for a group gravel ride into the Lowther Hills. It was a nice sunny day for it, following a prolonged spell of dry weather, so I was expecting the trails to be dusty. With two early mechanicals, before setting off we discovered that Craig's front tyre had quite a gash in it, and the tubeless sealant was being challenged to seal it. It seemed to be okay, but started weeping again when we stopped moving. Tam the tank saddle then literally fell to pieces in front of me. It was quite awkward to put it back together, but after a little faff we reattached it and set off north again. We'd done this ride once before, but in the opposite direction. We headed north on the B7076 for just under 10 miles on the road before we turned west and into the Clyde wind farm through entrance F. We were then straight into a 1.5 mile climb on the wind farm gravel, so doing the ride in this direction you're effectively climbing for the first 11 miles. At the top of the wind farm we were at our highest point of the day at 1,134 feet, but it certainly wasn't all downhill from here. Bill was out with us again sporting his Law Wheelers kit, and he did his club colours proud on the day. I'd like to thank Cammy Gray for the fantastic backing music here on the guitar. I treated myself to a new pair of gravel shoes, and this was to be their baptism. Online reviews suggested that these can take a little breaking in, so I was wondering if going for a 5-hour ride straight off would be a good idea, but decided to just put them to the test. There were a couple of locked gates to be negotiated in the wind farm. We've cycled in here a few times and it contains some really long and really steep climbs. We didn't really spend much time in the wind farm once we'd crested before turning back downhill towards the A702. This is a lovely wee road which winds down towards Thornhill. There was some kind of car meet on, and there were some beautiful old classic cars which passed us. If you're enjoying this video, smash the like button, and while you're at it, please consider subscribing to the channel. It'd be most appreciated, and if you hit the notifications button, you'll be advised when I make a new video. I'm now 7/8 of the way to 2,000 subscribers, and that would be an amazing milestone to hit, so if you could help, thanks. If you fancy having a go at some of these routes, why not join us for a group ride, or you can download the GPX files by following me on Strava at Douglas Gilligan, RACC, or on Komoot at Specialised Doug. This was a route for the day, and as you can see it cuts a rather lumpy profile. I got the drone up to record the descent of the Road of Bones, as the lads call it. This is a little bumpy in places but quite a nice descent which runs you into the village of Deer. I actually quite enjoyed it as a climb when we climbed it in the opposite direction. Following the descent we sat in a little square in front of the church and monument and chilled for a bit as we waited for Tam and Bill to catch us up. As we left the village we were straight into a pretty steep gravel climb. The road split about halfway up and we were all pleased to see that we were taking the lower road of the two, as the left hand side one looked even steeper than ours. This is the Kettleton climb. It packs 636 feet of climbing into its 3-mile length and hits a stingy 17.7%. There were a couple of red kites circling above Graham and I on the ascent. Having watched my fair share of spaghetti westerns as a kid, I wondered if they were eyeing us up in anticipation of us pegging out from heat exhaustion in the climb. Following my recent edict to our e-bike brethren on climbing etiquette, I was pleased to note that Dell mostly behaved himself in this ride, although at this point I did have a little battery envy. The big man did give me a wee push up a hill later on, which was most welcome. My very own sticky bottle moment. This bothy is almost bang on the halfway mark and therefore perfectly placed for lunch. It's a lovely spot with a couple of picnic benches and we were all delighted to have a wee break after what was a pretty challenging climb up from the village of Jurisdeer. As we set off after lunch, Brendan got to playing on his bike again and Cammy had a wee mechanical, but thankfully it was only a dropped chain. This was us on the plateau above Kettleton Reservoir. We could look across from here and see the big golf ball of the radar station above Warnock Head on Lowther Hill, which actually reminds me that our painful annual pilgrimage to that climb must be coming up soon. This descent hits 32% at its steepest point, and you won't be surprised to hear that we ended up pushing our bikes up it when we did this route in reverse last October. After the chunky descent, there's a nice section of lovely smooth tarmac to allow your fillings to settle again. Brendan, who as you know is our resident scientist, is undertaking the Grand Old Duke's gravel event next month. This event is 111 miles with 10,000 feet of climbing, and Brendan put in quite a few training efforts throughout the day. It looks to be going well, and I'm sure he'll be just fine for the event. The road bisects a pretty basin-like section of land which is lovely to roll through and gives your legs some very welcome respite. This route packs a fair punch into its mileage, so if you fancy taking it on, be prepared for a test of your stamina. We then stopped at this pretty little bridge. As with all other waterways, the water levels are very low at the moment, but the water was very clear and quite inviting looking. I think if Cammy was given any encouragement, he would have been in there for a dip. It was hardly surprising that this section was closed. There were a shed load of trees felled just in the area that we could see. Initially Brendan thought that this was our route, and a few of us were a little concerned at what that meant for getting back, but thankfully Cammy and Graham appeared and confirmed that we had just to continue straight on. Tam hasn't done a great deal of cycling this year, and fair play to him for getting round without any moaning. Well, above his normal level obviously. Graham was still buzzing from Airdrie's playoff win, although this was counterbalanced by Stu, who's still smarting a little at how Hamilton Ackies have been treated. Thankfully doing the route in this direction means that we finished with almost all of the last 7 miles being downhill, which was honestly very welcome. As we started to descend, we unexpectedly met a large camper van on a bend in the narrow roads. Dale had a wee rear wheel lock-up and a bit more off-road cycling than the rest of us here, but thankfully everyone's reactions were still good. Thankfully Craig's sealant had put in a real shift and it managed to hold up his tyre for the duration, and Tam's saddle remained in place after literally falling to pieces in front of my eyes. Like Paolo Nutini, I was pretty pleased with my new shoes. They'll take a bit of getting used to regarding how tight to tie the laces to avoid numb toes, but that's almost always the case. We had a great day in what everyone agreed was a challenging route. Thanks again to Graham for plotting it, and thanks to everyone for turning up on the day. Most of us were able to round off the day with a wee pint in the beer garden of a local pub in Beatup, as we reflected on the ride and enjoyed relaxing in the sunshine after our exertions. Unfortunately, Tam, Graham, Cammy and Bill had to get themselves up the road and couldn't join us, but if it's any consolation lads, we were thinking about you. And the ride by the numbers, we covered 46 lumpy miles with 4,200 feet of climbing. Thanks for watching, it really is most appreciated.